good afternoon. You're welcome to today's episode of the Tech Talk with me, Kazeem. And our talk today is going to be around data center of the future. And sure, I have a data center expert with me on the show today. Bob, hi, and welcome to the Tech Talk show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So let's start things with an introduction. Who is Bob and what do you do for a living?
So, I am Bob Cornelissen from the Netherlands, and I am a data center monitoring and management consultant from the Netherlands, from the company Topcore. I've run my own company since about 15 years, and I've been in the IT business for a little bit over 20 years now, and a Microsoft MVP for 10 years.
Since our talk today is data center of the future, I usually don't like to assume on the show, right? So let's start in with a definition of what a data center is, and how would you say that a data center is different from cloud computing?
Well, actually, I want to start with saying that there are basically two kind of definitions for this. So normally a data center is like a big building with a lot of racks in it, full of servers and storage and network equipment. And there are a lot of power cables and network cables going on out there, and some physical security. But what is often referenced as a data center is what we call on-premises services. So this is where a company is located in an office building and has a separate room for their own servers and network equipment. So those servers run applications and so on for just that company. Now, what makes cloud computing different from all of this is that it really is your stuff sitting in somebody else's data center, right? So these are huge buildings all over the world from example, from Microsoft, AWS, and Google, and a few more. The big ones provide nearly every service that you can think of, while there are also software companies who provide one application from a cloud location for you to access and use. So location is one thing. The other thing is in relation to cloud computing is that everything there is virtualized. You can pick up a virtual server and install your stuff on it, but cloud is mostly meant for consuming software as a service items, such as you want only to have a website. You don't care about anything outside from that website anymore. The cloud provider takes care of everything, so you can focus.
Thank you very much. So you just told us about what a data center is, and in between you mentioned virtualization. So we know data center has been around way even before virtualization started, right? So do you want to please help us with just a little history of what we used to have back then, and also what we have now, and what the future looks like for data center?
Well, I think it's actually funny how in the IT world we see fluctuations in how IT is used. So back in the old days of, let's say, 30 to 40 years ago, a personal computer was not the most common and it was also not a strong device. So companies had mainframes sitting in a central location in the company, and you just got a terminal to talk to it. Essentially just a keyboard and a screen. All code and computations are run from one central machine. So when I was a student in fisheries biology back in the late 90s, I started out doing statistical analysis at the university through a terminal connected to a central SAS computer, and we used to have huge stacks of chained paper with all of the calculations printed out to look at the results. About the time when Windows 95 came out, I think the computers sitting at the desk were quick enough to do all of the work, and everybody started working from the desktops. Now, a number of years back, from back then up to now, we see virtualized desktops becoming more regular and being provided from a central location. And you again just access it through a screen and a keyboard, basically. So we are actually coming back to the same story again. And we see also that more and more data gets stored in an off-site cloud environment instead of just your own data center.
We're now in the cloud era, right? Where we have a lot of tools out there. For instance, now we have a tool like the Azure Arc and some other solutions. So, from your experience, I want to ask now, what are those tools that a business with an already existing data center looking to also take advantage of the hybrid cloud now? What tools do you see they can leverage to consolidate the data center they have with the cloud?
Well, I think there are a few quick wins over there. Often this starts with running office productivity tools. So to start with, you move email into the cloud. Next, you add other tools such as Teams and Office tooling and storage to this. Authentication is usually a thing to take care of first. So you have separate accounts for your cloud and you synchronize that to your own data center accounts, or you synchronize between the two of them. So that is essentially Azure AD, right? I think you had previous talks about this already. And this is so you can connect to your applications both in the data center and into the cloud. And Azure AD Connect can take care of all of that synchronization. So people are more and more used to using any device to consume cloud-based services anyway, mostly through apps on a phone and a tablet and websites. Keep in mind, by the way, that the classic Hotmail was sold to Microsoft in '97, and it already had 8 million mailboxes at that time. So those are serious numbers to run as a cloud service, even back when we were not even talking about it. So coming back to managing hybrid data center setups, there are new tools built for both the on-premises world and the cloud world, and some are built to work together. A good example is Windows Admin Center, which is a web-based service you can install on a machine, and from there you can access all kinds of things on your servers. Where we used to use either remote desktop to a server and run an MMC window to check the registry or event viewer or Windows services, we could later do that remotely with the same MMC, but MMC is old, so it's still coming from NT4 times, so over 20 years ago. And Windows Admin Center just uses remote PowerShell to talk to the other machine. Now, if you have larger numbers of servers, larger numbers of systems, you would use System Center tools. So to manage them, to monitor them, to deploy them, and for backup and automation as well. So these tools have been getting more and more hybrid functionality as well over the years. And the next version of this tooling suite, the System Center suite, is coming out in just a few months. And there is also the site where you can use the cloud-based tooling to manage stuff sitting in your cloud, but also in your own data center. So this is where Azure Monitor comes in and where you see Security Center, Defender, and Sentinel for the security side. You talked about that 2 weeks ago, I think, with Adnan. And you mentioned Azure Arc already, which is a way to use the cloud interface and way of working in the cloud to connect to your on-premises servers and use them in the same way.
You mentioned System Center. System Center is that tool that many Microsoft admins like to work with when it comes to data center management. But now that we have many of these hybrid tools available to us, where do you see that all these many hybrid tools leave SCCM? What's your thoughts about the relevance of SCCM today, in this cloud-first world?
Oh, wow. Well, SCCM or Configuration Manager has been at the heart of managing a lot of data center servers and desktops since the late 90s, actually. Also a very old product. It was used to deploy Windows to machines, deploy applications to them, and update Windows patches and applications, right? So those were some of the main functions. And it also functioned as a CMDB to have a listing of whatever you are running. Now, since a while, we have seen more focus on Config Manager becoming an endpoint management platform for desktops, laptops, tablets, and phones even. Now, cloud platforms like Intune have been set up to do this and work together in hybrid forms with SCCM. So they are kind of coming together here. Also, we have seen SCCM Config Manager rebranded to Endpoint Configuration Manager. So this kind of tells you something. However, I still see a lot of companies using SCCM as a product itself to deploy and manage servers, especially servers also. So sometimes even separate from the desktop management. And to come back to your question, I would say it depends on what you are doing with Config Manager and where your servers or services are, or where your devices are. You will see that if you have more applications going to the cloud in a modern way, that you no longer have control over the underlying hardware or deployment, because the cloud takes care of that, right? You only wanted to have that just one website. You didn't care about the rest. So you do not ask anymore for a server and to maintain it, to patch it, to back it up, high availability, pay maybe somebody to fix the cooling unit in a data center. You don't care about that if you are working in the cloud. So for hybrid cloud companies, you can see some just moving full machines to the cloud and maintaining them there. That's just moving from one location to the other and having to do the same thing. But I see for now that SCCM and Intune, in short, I would say Endpoint Manager, are trying to bring this story together. And you have to determine what it is that you want to manage and select the appropriate tool for it and what its location is going to be. Cloud, data center, doesn't matter.
We still have some environments full of legacy systems, right? And some environments will claim that, or maybe they are having this challenge of migrating fully to the cloud now because of regulatory requirements, right? Or compliance requirements. So, what's your take on how best a company such as this, a company with some legacy systems in place, can take advantage of Kubernetes and cloud technologies in their data center?
Well, you can consider me an old guy as well, I guess. Uh, I also make use of many classic systems, and so do many of my customers. This is because it is not easy to just flip a switch and change everything that you did for so long. What I believe in is hybrid. As I've said for many years, while the story was still that you had to flip from data center all the way to the cloud, there are simply reasons why there will be on-premises services needed and used. But we have to see and use the cloud services, and we have to discover that there are also many opportunities there, which are very difficult to set up and handle within your own data center for several reasons. So hybrid is the future for the coming years as far as I'm concerned. And you can simply start using cloud services in your environment, connected or not, and connect them up where applicable and integrate them where it makes sense, either for possibilities or cost reasons or whatever. One of the things which we hear a lot is containerization. This also started years ago where we wanted to go to either core versions of an operating system and let it do only one function, or to go to some other container option. So that one application you would simply run in a small bubble and there's less stuff around it to maintain, to attack, etc. And Kubernetes is one of such options which helps you use a central piece of computing power and cut it up into small containers and get your applications in there in a new way of working and to get those to work together. In the last few years, this grew really strongly in the cloud, because it simply fits the way of working in new cloud environments. But as you've said in your question, people are wanting to use modern Kubernetes also in data centers. And this is possible. So this is where the hybrid cloud options come into, for example, Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc, where you can connect from the cloud tooling, which is optimized for all of this functionality, back into your data center where the Kubernetes just happens to sit.
Let's come back now to some of the things that we need to worry about when it comes to the talk of the data center. There are so many stuffs to manage about the data center. I know that the capacity planning that you need to worry about. We need to worry about power issues. But you're the experts here, Bob. So what are those areas? What are those areas of focus when we talk data center infrastructure management that we need to concern ourselves about?
Well, I think for many years we have seen increasing virtualization, right? First, the servers were virtualized in virtual machines, and later, network and storage were also highly virtualized. So there still is a need to manage physical hosts and network devices and all of that, obviously. But a lot of normal IT focus will be on managing and monitoring the virtualized environments and their functioning. For example, for the applications they provide. So for Microsoft, there's the System Center tooling for all of this, and a new version is coming out in a few months' time. I am already testing a preview release of all of that for you. Don't ask me, by the way, as I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But you can see that Windows Server 2022 was released and it is working, right? System Center to deploy, manage, and backup, monitor, and automate it is already there and new version. And all of those have hybrid options and capabilities. Now, the other focus is on tooling which helps this story either from the cloud or on premises, such as, again, Windows Admin Center for on-prem, but it can also be installed in the cloud. And of course, there's the Azure Arc for bringing management together for both environments and using modern technologies. I believe this will bring many advantages to bring you the best of both worlds coming together. And for security, I believe the cloud-based tooling that Microsoft is providing now, simply because it brings you cloud scale and speed, and it is very, very difficult to replicate this in your own environment with a few servers and an application. Microsoft has everything connected through an immense number of servers and services worldwide from themselves and from so many of their customers, that this scale advantage really makes for a great story. You just cannot do this on your own.
We can't talk data center and not mention monitoring, right? So let's talk about let's talk about monitoring for just a little bit. We always want to make sure that our servers are healthy and they give us peak performance, right? So what
Yes.
would you say are your top 5 data center monitoring systems or tools that you would like to share?
So for me, my nickname, as you may know, is Scum Bob. So this is a nickname given to me by the community. So I would say from the top 5, the top 3 would all be Scum. But I am adding Azure Monitor to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, just a moment. We have students listening, so they perhaps might be wondering, what are you talking about? SCORM, what does that mean?
So this is the Microsoft System Center tool for monitoring. It's of course built in the data center for data center monitoring purposes. You can monitor Windows applications running on Windows, but also Linux and network devices with that. So this is my specialism since so long that they actually called me Scum Bob with an O and not with a U. um, so yeah, I would say that is by far my favorite tool. But if you look at the Azure Monitor from the cloud, together with Log Analytics, that is another feature which is very strong coming up, and it has more and more possibilities every time. And of course, if you deploy something in the cloud, it will already be in there. Now, Azure Arc does integrate with that story again. So it brings together connecting to your on-premises services in the data center, and it will use the cloud to manage and monitor this. So this is a better together story again. Of course, there are a lot of monitoring tools out there, which mostly were built for the company data center components, let's say. So some are generalist, and some are very specific to just one product or application. And I believe that if it is possible to bring down the number of tools in use, that this will help for the end result. Even if it means that the quality of monitoring goes down to 90%, simply because you will see that if you want 100% monitoring, even if that is possible, that you will have so many tools out there that there's simply not enough space on your wall to put monitors to view all of it, right? So bringing monitoring together and bringing it to the forefront, especially with a tool like SCOM, so other stakeholders besides the third line support can see what is going on. You want to see the help desk, managers, application admins. They need to have insights as well into what is going on in the data center.
Thank you very much. But the plan is for you to also see, is for us to see if you can draw us a little demo towards the end. But I'm afraid, I'm not sure we've got enough time in our hands now, Bob. Would you be open to us doing this another time? Perhaps we could just have a demo session where you can walk us through a little bit of this data center related demos now, Bob.
Of course, I can do it anytime, depending on what you want. I mean, I do have a very short version of the Windows Admin Center, for example. But yeah, I do understand that it's better to do it maybe next time and have some demo, have some fun together.
So are there any last words that you would like to leave our listeners with before we say bye bye now?
Well, for the listeners and especially also for students, I would say, keep on learning, because IT is a business where you have to keep on learning new things and figuring out how everything connects together. I think that is the most important part. And yeah, we can talk about that story again in another episode, because I have some stories for you there as well. But that is the main thing. Keep on learning and keep on having an eye for monitoring and management tooling, as well as just being able to set up something. That is important.
Okay. Thank you so much for making out the time to join us on the Tech Talk today, Bob. So you've heard it from Bob. And so do continue to keep safe. And this is how much time is going to permit us on the show today. If you like a rewatch of the previous episode, you can do that on YouTube. So it's the Tech Talk Wednesday with Kazeem on YouTube. So you can have a rewatch of this episode and the previous episode as well. So from myself and Bob now and Chocolate hosting us today on the show, it's a bye-bye, and let's continue to keep safe.